The FBI Agents Association has said that your actions, quote, distract agents from their work, foster fear that their assignments could cost them their careers, either now or under the next administration, and increase the risk of criminal and national security threats by undermining unity and morale within the Bureau, end quote. This association, as you know, is voluntary. It represents 14,000 members, 90% of all the active agents. These are your employees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, thank you for being here today. You'll recall well in January at your confirmation hearing before this committee, I raised the prospect of politically motivated retaliation, and you promised me, as you did other members of this committee, quote, every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard and no one will be terminated for case assignments. You went on to tell me, quote, all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. And you assured one of my colleagues that you would honor the internal review process of the FBI. I'm not going to mince words. You lied to us. In the short time that you've been FBI director, you've presided over a rash of retaliatory firings. 3 FBI agents have recently sued you. They are FBI agents with 60 years between them of distinguished service, rescuing hostages, saving kids from predators, dismantling drug cartels, and their allegations, their civil allegations, are a searing indictment of your tenure as FBI director. But it's not just those 3. The FBI Agents Association has said that your actions, quote, distract agents from their work, foster fear that their assignments could cost them their careers, either now or under the next administration, and increase the risk of criminal and national security threats by undermining unity and morale within the Bureau, end quote. This association, as you know, is voluntary. It represents 14,000 members, 90% of all the active agents. These are your employees.
We've all seen powerful moments in the Senate, but now let's step back together, dig into why this particular hearing really matters, what's at stake for democracy and justice, and what you should walk away with. Because this isn't just about one man, one institution, or one case. It's about our collective values: transparency, accountability, and protecting the vulnerable. During the oversight hearing, Senator Blumenthal grilled Director Patel over access to the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's case. The years-long, high-stakes investigation into sex trafficking, institutional failure, and alleged elite complicity. Patel declared there was no credible information that Epstein trafficked underage victims to others beyond himself. Blumenthal pressed him. If there is more, the public deserves to know. If there isn't, then investigative resources and FBI leadership must reflect that reality. But here's the twist. This isn't just about Epstein. It's about whether our federal institutions, especially the Federal Bureau of Investigation, will serve public interest or private power, whether victims get closure or are sidelined, whether secrecy or sunlight prevails. Patel himself acknowledged that the initial investigation, under Alex Acosta in 2006 to 2007, was deeply flawed. Very limited search warrants, insufficient evidence seizure. He called that the original sin of the Epstein case. For a democratic perspective, when early investigative failures happen, victims are robbed of justice, and trust in our system erodes. Blumenthal's role isn't grandstanding. It's a necessary push for a system that works for all of us. Blumenthal sought access to transcripts, documents, and investigatory files. He emphasized that the public and Congress have a right to know what happened, how, and why certain paths weren't pursued. Patel counters. Legal constraints such as grand jury secrecy and prior prosecutorial decisions limit what can be released. From a democratic lens,
saying that your performance has been unqualified and unfit. And there is mounting evidence that these retaliatory firings were the result of direction from the White House. There have been instances in the past history of the Bureau of political interference and political direction from the director's office, but not the kind of institutional interference that we're seeing from the White House right now. I'm going to ask you, has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions?
I completely disagree with your entire premise that I have lied or am misleading the FBI. If I were, the results that I announced today by the men and women of the FBI and the historic records we are doing to keep this country safe would not be possible. The men and women of the FBI are responding to our leadership and this administration's priorities. The only way people get terminated at the FBI is if they fail to meet the muster of the job and their duties, and that is where I will leave it. And you accusing me of lying is something I don't take lightly, but I'm not going to get into a tit for tat with you.
Well, let me just ask you to answer my question. Has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions?
Generally speaking, we always discuss with the White House, OMB, during the budget process, how many personnel we need, who we need where.
Answer is yes.
For budgetary purposes and
to fire people, agents, because they participated in investigations of the president?
I don't receive directions to do that.
Has anyone
I make the
suggested
decisions.
it? Has anyone asked you to do it? The best information is yes, you've taken suggestions and direction from the White House in firing qualified agents.
Any termination at the FBI was a decision that I made based on the evidence that I have as a director of the FBI, and it's my job, and I'm not going to shy away from it. And as you stated, those are allegations, and that is an ongoing litigation. So they'll have their day in court, and so will we.
The allegations are not just in that lawsuit, Director Patel, and I think your testimony confirms that, in fact, you've taken direction from the White House in those retaliatory firings.
It literally does not.
Because you've acknowledged that, in fact, they have been in contact with you about personnel decisions.
The White House has been, do not put words in my mouth, we're on the record. The White House, like any administration, contacts its agencies on the budgeting process and where it needs personnel and where the mission priorities are. That always happens. If they didn't do that, they would be abdicating the responsibility to law enforcement. I will always work with my partners in the chain of command at the Department of Justice and the White House to ensure that this FBI is delivering the results we are delivering, to include the lowest murder rate in modern U.S. history, to include the most fentanyl seizures in modern U.S. history, to include the most lives saved and the most children found in modern U.S. history. That is a working FBI. That is not a failing FBI.
Let's move on to a related area. In White House discussions, have you been asked or directed by the White House or others to engage in a crackdown on political groups or organizations, nonprofits, after the murder of Charlie Kirk?
To direct at political organizations? No. I've been asked by my chain of command to properly root out criminal activity wherever it is in whatever investigation we are conducting, and that's what we're doing.
Have those distinctions about whom you're going to target been based on direction from the White House?
Nobody gives me a list on who to target. My targeting list is from the men and women at the FBI.
Have you talked about investigating certain groups, nonprofits, or foundations or institutions?
Whatever those investigations are, they're ongoing, and I'm not going to get into those.
Have you used polygraphs to determine loyalty of agents?
No.
Have you committed that you will respect the First Amendment rights of agents?
I have wildly committed to respecting the First Amendment rights of agents, but at the FBI, you have to balance your First Amendment rights with your mission.
Have you imposed any sort of loyalty test in the course of using polygraphs or in any of the other personnel decisions?
Polygraphs have been utilized at the FBI for decades. They will continue to be utilized in the fashion by the professionals that administer them.
Have you asked under the polygraph test about individuals' loyalty or about their voting records or any kind of past statement?
Just to make it abundantly clear, I don't tell the professionals how to conduct polygraphs or what questions to ask. They make those decisions. And I, as a director of the FBI, never ask anyone who they voted for.
Have you investigated donors to a political party simply because they are donors?
Simply based on that fact alone, no.
Have you investigated donors for another reason?
Many donors may be involved in criminal enterprises and criminal activities, and those individuals will be investigated.
Can you commit to make public the Epstein files that so far have not been released if this committee is able to review them on a classified basis?
I think this is an important distinction. The Epstein case file is not classified, to my understanding. So we are providing what we legally can, and we are going to give Congress what we are legally permitted to do so to the maximum extent of the law.
Will you enable the chairman and the ranking member to review them on a classified basis?
That doesn't make any sense. If the material in the Epstein file is not classified, there is no basis for a
Well, it
classified
would protect
review.
the confidentiality of them if they were able to review them on a classified basis.
If anyone in this room can get the multiple district court judges to lift their court protective,
Yes, we must respect legal process, but secrecy cannot become cover-up. When the files are sealed and the public keeps asking why, the system begins to look protective of powerful interests, not of victims. Blumenthal accused Patel of breaking his earlier promise not to use the FBI for political vengeance. And in the Epstein context, the question looms: is the FBI following the facts, or is the agency being steered to avoid embarrassing results? From a democratic viewpoint, the FBI must serve the Constitution and public safety, not be a tool for shielding elites or political allies. At the heart of this, there are survivors of sex trafficking who've waited for full accountability. If parts of the file remain hidden, or if investigations are limited, then it sends a message: powerful people may get away with more. That undermines trust in our criminal justice system. From the democratic vantage, no one is above the law. We must ensure that victims' rights aren't secondary to political convenience. When you see, we don't have credible information, ask, who made that determination? What were the investigative boundaries? Patel said, if there were, I would bring the case yesterday. But that underlines how seriously we need independent, thorough investigation. Sealing of documents isn't inherently bad, but widespread sealing plus limited justification becomes worrying. Oversight matters. When Congress asks hard questions and when agencies produce robust answers, that's how democracy works. Blumenthal's persistence isn't political theater. It's oversight. We're living at a moment where many feel institutions don't work for them. Either they're too slow, too secretive, too deferential to the wealthy or powerful. This hearing shines a light on that feeling. Democrats pushing for transparency, accountability, and protection of the vulnerable aren't just playing opposition. They're upholding foundational democratic values. Every time the FBI, DOJ, or Congress deals with a case involving sex trafficking, institutional failure, or elite wrongdoing, the message isn't just about the case itself. The message is, does the system serve the people, or do we serve the system? If you found this helpful, share the commentary with someone who might not follow these hearings, but cares about justice and accountability. Reach out to your congressional representatives and ask questions. Are more files being made available? What reforms are being pursued so the next Epstein-type case doesn't fall through the cracks? Stay informed. When agencies claim legal limits for secrecy, ask them what exactly those limits are, and whether reforms can allow more transparency without compromising investigations.